Hello, and welcome back to Right on Time with me, Megan.
And me, Sarah.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, episode 2. Here we go.
Episode 2.
How are you?
I'm really nervous.
This is Meghan's birth story, this one. That's the topic of today.
I know it's the first time I think I'm a bit speechless.
That's not good.
Yeah, it's not the best vibe to start off a podcast.
It's not the vibe.
No, I'm nervous, but
Excited.
I think it's just apprehension. But I think once we get going, it'll be fine.
I'm excited because I don't feel like I know this story very well.
And you're not in the hot seat.
Yeah. I'm so chilled today. I'm not
Zen
talking.
vibes.
Yeah, Zen
All about the
vibes
Zen
over here.
vibes.
I'm loving it. I just want to ask how your week has been.
My week's been really nice.
Tell me about it.
So we actually went away
Oh,
for a few days. So it's the first time we've actually been away as a family, which is really lovely.
family of 3.
Family of 3.
Nelly stayed at home.
Nelly stayed at home with Jane Pops,
Oh, cute.
having the time of her life. So that was really nice. And we took Blake swimming for the first time,
Oh, cute.
which was so nice. And he loved it, which I was really pleasantly surprised about. I thought he was going to hate just being cold. But
Yeah.
actually, I think it helped. The pool was warm. And yeah, he loved it. And that was a real kind of milestone for us as a family. So that was really nice.
Oh.
How's your week been?
My week has been a little bit similar. We haven't been anywhere right enough. But we also took Felix swimming for the first time.
Oh, you did?
We went swimming, yeah. And he was neither here nor there. He was not not unimpressed, but not impressed either.
I think your photos summed it up very
Yeah,
well.
he had a lot of thoughts. He went through every emotion.
He did.
He didn't cry though, so I'm going to take that as a win. And he was happy when it was over. So there you
I
go.
don't think it's such a huge milestone.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like I don't know why swimming means so much more. But I just felt going in the pool,
Because
calling
it
out.
is something normal. And
It
you
is.
see everyone else post that kind of milestone. That is a milestone that is posted to the world.
Definitely.
And I think at that point you'd never know if that's going to happen or not for you.
Totally. It was.
So
no, it was lovely.
Amazing.
And great they enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Both did.
Yeah. I would definitely say ours was
Little
like
water
success.
babies.
Oh, cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, well done, you.
So today, Sarah is our host.
Yes, I am the one taking charge. So if this goes Pete Tong, it's all on me.
It's fine.
I want to know, well, that's your mum win of the week. Let's say the swimming.
Huge.
Yeah.
Also, mum win of the week was, so we went away for 2 nights, and not only did we obviously have Blake for a portion of that stay, but we also had a night to ourselves. So my mum and dad took Blake and Nelly for the night, which was really nice. So the second night we had just a bit of us time, which was really nice.
That's really nice.
And it was a win because it's the first time I've actually been away from Blake since he's been discharged from hospital.
Oh, really? How did you feel about that?
I felt a range of emotions.
Did you?
Yeah, I definitely did. And I don't think I fully appreciated it until we were literally in the car driving up driving up to the hotel thinking, okay, my mum and dad are coming to collect him tomorrow. How am I going to feel? And then when they came and got him, it definitely it hit me harder than I thought it was going to do.
Were you apprehensive about that?
Very. And for a range of reasons, I think it was in trusting somebody else with your little one who has complex needs.
Yep.
Which we'll come on to today, and trusting somebody else to be able to look after them in the same way you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they did great.
And were you like one of those mums that were checking their phone every 2 minutes? How are
No.
they? How are they?
I did text them like every couple of hours.
Did
I
you?
was like, is he okay? And I've got the Huckleberry app on my phone, and I did check the Huckleberry app. But anyway, they did great. They smashed it. Yeah, my mum and dad did an amazing job. They also said they were like, we'll happily have him again. So I was like, well, it can't have gone
that's
that
good.
Yeah, it can't have gone that poorly.
Felix went and had his first sleepover a couple of weeks ago. And I tell you, I was just like, bye. I honestly didn't think too much about it. But I wasn't away anywhere. I was just in the house. Like, I didn't want to wait for an event and then me be apprehensive and ruin the event, if you know what I mean, by worrying. So me and Ryan just went out for dinner and came home, and I was asleep by 10:30. Like,
Even better.
sound asleep. It was amazing.
Just chill.
He slept all night. He was totally fine. My mum and dad did not, because they were that worried about it.
They're wired.
Yeah, they were like, oh my God.
Yeah.
My dad was like, I had to turn off his white noise machine so I could hear him breathing. And I was like, he's fine. But yeah, I
Love
honestly,
that.
I thought I was going to be apprehensive, but I really wasn't.
Well, that also, I think, is a reflection of how far you've come.
Yeah, really chilled out about it. So there you go.
I'm
But-
impressed.
Felix doesn't have as many complex needs as what Blake does, so I can imagine your apprehensiveness there.
Yeah.
Like, I can imagine that little bit of extra stress. But your mum has been there through it all, and she knows.
Oh yeah, she has. And I also think they did some really good. They took some really good steps to learn his routine.
Yeah.
Which I think really helped. So they would come in and in the morning help set up with things, do some of his meds, and like at night, my mum had stayed for a sleepover in the house while we were still in the house.
Oh, okay, so she kind of knew the nighttime situation.
Yeah.
Oh,
so had that comfort. So we'd done that as a bit of a comfort blanket, so that if something was to go pear shaped or like with feeding pumps, which we'll come on to later, if something went wrong, then we were always on hand to be able to step in and help, but then also got her to build our confidence up. So then when we
That's
were
a really
removed,
good hack. I never even thought about doing that. That's a really good hack.
But it then gave me that reassurance that when they were literally on their own.
But I'm sure like your mum, that helped your mum feel more confident.
Oh yeah. And she smashed it.
You wouldn't have expected anything less from Jan.
I know. Glam Jan came in and she was just like, oh, this is a breeze.
Good. So what is your mum woe of the week?
Oh, my mum.
Have you had any? If you haven't had any, that's great.
I haven't had a woe.
No? That's great. Like, that's really good.
Yeah, no.
Good.
Have you had a mum woe?
I would say not a mum woe, but a personal, like, I feel like this week I've been shock horror emotional.
We've got the hankies.
No, I feel like Felix has to get an operation. He has to get a hernia operation. It's very common, very routine apparently. I just don't know when that's going to be, and I feel like the anticipation is maybe building a bit for me.
Hanging over your head.
When I got told that he was going to have it, I was like, yep, that's fine. Very pragmatic, like, okay. And I just didn't think about it. Whereas I think it's kind of the anticipation of like, when is this going to happen? We're going to have to go back to the hospital.
Yeah.
What if he doesn't, like the intrusive thoughts of what if he doesn't come back out? Like that is playing in my mind. So I've been a little bit emotional, and I think everything plays in your mind when you're a bit emotional. Tears are going. Already we're 5 minutes in. But yeah.
That's natural. And I think any parent would feel that, right? But then adding in the fact that we've had the journey that we've gone through and being
it's just that intrusive kind of thought, I think. But
it's the unknown.
So I wouldn't say it's been a mum woe in the sense of how Felix has been this week or any struggles in that area.
Yeah.
Just more personally, that's kind of playing in my head.
Yeah, I get that.
And that's maybe bringing back a bit of trauma, but like,
and that's okay.
That's fine. Every day is different and we just take it a day at a time. But yeah, that's been my kind of week. I felt just a little bit on edge about it. That's a new segment on this podcast, by the way.
Mum wins and mum woes. I like that. So
I have some quick fire questions, and these are going to be quick fire this time.
Yeah, no waffle.
It's just going to be 3, just to get to know you better as a person.
Okay.
Even just for me, things that I want to know. Number 1, do you have any tattoos?
No.
Would you ever get a tattoo?
No.
No? Why?
I've never fancied it.
Fair enough.
I also have would I?
Don't say you've got a fear of needles now.
No, definitely not. I just don't fancy. I've never looked at, like, I have nothing against tattoos.
Yeah.
And I think
just not for you.
Yeah, I think tattoos are really, really meaningful when they're done.
Right.
Yeah, and they obviously have symbolism. Like, I think that's where I would consider maybe doing it. But I've just never been one of these people that...
Just never been a desire?
No.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I've got a fear that if it was to, like... You're going to laugh at this. I've got a fear that if I was to get a tattoo and for whatever reason, like the colouring would change or something.
Yeah.
And
to be fair,
it's stuck with you forever.
I've got one in the back of my neck.
You do not?
I've got one on my rib. And like I have a tiny little thunderbolt in a weird place on my knee here.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And like the one on my rib was the first one. It's just a little leaf. It's supposed to be a fine line, but it's not a fine line. Anyway.
Do they all mean something?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got them done. I got rib done and back of my neck 2, like a year consecutive apart. And it was when I went and done Camp America. I worked at a camp for disabled adults and children, and it was just symbolising that kind of journey each time. And then the knee one, not really, it's just I was on handy. With my friends, we all have matching. I was on handy with my friends, yeah, a little thunderbolt. And I was go, ka-chow.
That's so good. I love that.
Next question.
Okay.
What is a tradition from your childhood that you want to pass on to Blake and carry on?
Coming into the festive season, I'm going to steal a Christmas tradition that Paul has rather than me.
Right, okay. That's fine. That can be for, like, something that's nice that you just want to carry on.
Yeah. They, as a family, used to do something called the gifting tree.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Which I believe they do across various different cities across the UK. And in Inverness, so my husband's from the north of Scotland, I think in Eden Court, one of their big kind of shopping areas, they have a huge, enormous tree. And on the tree is little gift tags. And it's a name of a child, their age, and where they're from. And you get like a limit. So say it's like £40 or something. And you go and buy a gift for the child that you've taken the gift tag.
That's really nice.
And obviously, you know their gender, you know the age, you have a kind of a gauge of what they might be into.
Yeah.
And then they would always go and place a gift under the gifting tree for that child.
That's really nice.
Yeah. We're chatting about it the other day. We're talking about traditions that we want to do with Blake. And that was one that I'd really like to carry on.
Oh, that is really nice.
What about you?
Mine is a little bit less selfless than that.
Go for it.
When I was young, well, mine is also to do with Christmas. I feel like just because it is near the season.
Yeah.
We're currently on the 29th of November. This is when this is getting recorded.
Yeah.
When I was little, our stockings would magically appear at the end of our bed. Santa would bring them, and that's how you knew Santa had been.
We did the same. I loved that.
So we'd go and open them in our mum and dad's bed, and then Dad would go and check if Santa had been. And then we'd go through. So I would like to do that.
I love that.
That our stockings, Santa fills the stockings and put them at the ends of the bed.
That's a really nice. We did the same, and my dad used to say, if it's not filled, you tap it, get back to sleep.
Oh yeah, well that's the thing. Our stockings were in the living room when we went to bed.
Okay,
and then
they ended up. That was quite clever.
Yeah, and they ended up at the end of the bed.
I feel my mum and dad needed to. They should have met up with your mum and dad to get that.
Trigger warning about Father Christmas.
Oh yeah,
by the way,
don't play this in front of children.
But yeah, that's Santa would bring her stocking, and that's how you knew he'd been. And if it wasn't there, you'd have to go back to sleep, but you were never asleep.
You'd be like, waiting.
Oh my God. But yeah, so that's mine.
That's a really nice one.
Yeah, a little bit less selfless than yours.
But it's the essence of like, how do you make something really magical?
Yeah. So that's something that I just always remember. But yeah, that's what I want to do. My third question.
Oh, okay.
If you were locked in a room with a parrot... Sorry. If you were locked...
Of all the things that was going to come out your mouth, that was not one.
If you were locked in a room with a parrot for 24 hours...
Okay.
What word or phrase would that parrot most likely pick up from you?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question.
Oh. Quick fire. 10 seconds, think about it.
I am so tired.
Yeah, probably. Legit.
I honestly think that's what it would say. That or I'm so sorry.
Oh, do you apologise a lot?
I apologise a lot. I apologise profusely for things that I am not even sorry for sometimes, or that I've done nothing wrong for.
Yeah, very British culture, that.
Yeah, I apologise all the time. But that I'm so tired. And I used to do that even before I was a mum.
Yeah.
Paul would be like, would you shut up? You're so tired.
Think I was never tired before.
I'm like, I had 10 hours sleep. How on earth were you tired?
Yeah.
What about you?
It's probably a swear word. Probably fuck. What's your favourite curse word? Probably fuck.
I could just imagine this parrot being like, I'm not going to try and do a parrot voice.
But yeah, that's my quick fire rounds.
I love how our quick fire rounds are never quick fire. We need to get quicker.
It was quicker than last time.
It was 38 minutes worth of quick fire last time.
I know.
Okay.
So now we're getting into the deep topic of today.
Yes, we are.
And that's going to be Meghan's pregnancy and birth story.
Mm-hmm.
So trigger warning to anyone listening. Today is going to be a lot of kind of medical... I don't know.
It's going to be heavy.
Yeah.
So... Trigger warning. Yeah, I think our story, I say our because it's Blake and my story, really.
Yeah.
yeah, it's emotional. It's quite, yeah, it has got quite a lot of medical twists and turns in it.
Yeah.
And it's not your A-type pregnancy and birth story.
It's not even really like a typical premature birth story.
No, it's not.
So if this...
She's getting comfy.
Oh, the legs are going up. I've got the tissues out already, by the way.
I know. I'm just thinking this. Yeah. Yeah. It's heavy. So trigger warning. If you're not ready to listen to anything that is... If you are pregnant, fair warning. If you're not ready to listen to something that is quite hard to hear.
Yeah, triggering.
It's triggering.
Jarring.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that maybe there's someone out there that's maybe going through similar to what you went through in your pregnancy.
Mm-hmm. And I hope there is, because...
And this can maybe give them an insight to what you went through. It doesn't mean what that's going to happen to them, but
yeah,
if it does, you know that they're not alone.
And I want to say this at the very beginning. So as much as we're giving a trigger warning to say, give yourself kindness and grace if you're not ready to listen to this, that's absolutely fine. I also want to caveat that as much as my story is really heavy and hard to hear, it also is a very positive one. So I want to start by saying my birth and my labour was the best fecking birth and labour I could ever have imagined. So that's where we start.
I know. I never thought you'd ever say that in this story, but there you go.
Yeah. So we often talk, would we have children again?
Yes.
And
based on the labour alone?
Based on my labour alone, I always say I'd give birth tenfold.
I think I would go through labour again. Mm-hmm. Like I said, mine wasn't that painful. So
yeah, mine was really positive.
I do always say mine wasn't that painful. That's not to take away from anyone else that has been painful. And I was early, so maybe that's something to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Our babies were small.
Yeah.
So I think that makes a big, significant difference. But yeah, I would say as much as it's triggering and it's heavy, I don't think people talk about positive experiences enough when it comes to their labour. And I remember being so terrified before giving birth about what that might look and feel like. And I do wish somebody had shared a little bit of what mine ended up being like, because it would have given me a little bit of optimism that it's not that bad. Some people's experiences definitely can be, but that was not mine. And considering everything we went through,
you'll hear this a lot, even with any kind of birth. A lot of people like to say, "Just you wait for the labour." Just you wait is the favourite phrase from everyone. Uh-huh. People are quick to say they are horror stories.
Yes,
people are quick to tell you about their terrible births, or even just their terrible things in general about having a child.
So yeah, just want to say my birth was really positive, and yeah, let's get into it.
So let's go from your pregnancy. How was your pregnancy?
My pregnancy was overall, up until 20 weeks, pretty good.
Pretty normal?
Mm-hmm. Pretty normal. I had a little bit of cramping and bleeding to begin with at the start, but nothing that I would say, when I look back now, I'm like, that really wasn't anything too traumatic. But I had to go to the early pregnancy unit, which we've talked about in our last episode, which is why I knew about them. And at 5 weeks, they did a scan and they couldn't hear a heartbeat. So they were like, you could be miscarrying. God, so a bit like you, I had to wait a week to then go back. And they did a lot
because they're so early.
Yeah, they say I think from 5 to 6 weeks.
You could be because we can't hear it, but you obviously weren't.
I wasn't, and I was absolutely fine. And it was just, I think,
you're too early.
Yeah, too early. But yeah, so aside from that, my pregnancy was absolutely grand up until 20 weeks. We did a few private scans and...
Did you have morning sickness? Do you have any like that?
I just had constant nausea.
Did you?
Yeah, but I was never sick.
Sometimes that's worse though. Sometimes you just want to be sick to make yourself feel better.
I completely went off food as well. I really wanted plain food. I just remember that specifically.
Yeah, beige. I had a beige diet.
Very beige. I had a lot of cheese and ham sandwiches.
Chicken nuggets.
Yeah. And I was utterly obsessed with Lauren sausage.
Oh, were you?
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God, that would give me so much heartburn.
Paul would be I didn't get any heartburn from it.
Really? That would have given me so much heartburn.
If Paul was here, he'd be like, Megan, I'm surprised wasn't a Lauren sausage by the time.
Just a wee square sausage, talk about.
I was, I was just obsessed. I don't know why. If it was, they do say like your cravings tend to be the things that your body lacks.
Yeah.
So like if you're into citrus things, it could be you're lacking vitamin C. So maybe I was lacking salt. I don't know, but that's the only
Mine
thing.
was like cakes and that. Sugar.
Could be. So yeah, my pregnancy was fine, and then when we got to our 20-week scan, plot twist, everything changed.
And did you feel a change, and that's why you went, or was it just the 20-week scan that
It was
a bomb was dropped?
Yeah, it was just a regular 20-week scan.
Right.
So you obviously on the NHS get your 12-week scan and then your 20, which I think is such a vast period of time to not have anything in between. And we'd actually, funnily enough, gone at 17 weeks to get a private scan. And it was just because I just wanted a little bit of reassurance.
Yeah. And within those 3 weeks, there was a change? Or did...
I just don't think in the private scan they weren't looking for anything like that.
Right.
So yeah, we did our private scan, 17 weeks, and came out and he was looking great.
And you found out the gender?
We found out the gender, yes, we
did.
From that one, yeah. It was. So we found out we're having a little boy. And
how did you feel about having a boy?
I loved it. I really secretly wanted a little boy.
Right. Oh. Mm-hmm. I like how you say that out loud, because a lot of people are like, "Oh, just be happy with either."
No, I really wanted.
And you probably would have been happy with, like, you would.
Oh, if we'd got a girl, I'd be over the moon. But I was just, I don't know why. I really loved the idea of a boy.
You were a boy mum.
Yeah, and we've been a family of girls.
Yeah.
So I'm like, actually having a little boy into the equation, and we've never had one. So I was like, for my mum and dad, that'll be like a real nice change.
We thought we were having a girl.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, we thought we were having a girl up until honestly our gender.
Funny how you get a gut and you think,
because I was so ill. And my skin was terrible, and like going with all those kind of
for girls.
Yeah, like the midwives. What are they called?
Old wives' tale.
Yeah, midwives.
I'm sure the midwife probably said the same.
All of those, it all pointed to a girl. And me and Ryan both thought that.
Bad heartburn.
Yeah, and I was really sick, like all of them. And then Ryan's one of 3 boys. I have a brother. Like there's a lot of boys, and my nephew Harlow. Like a lot of boys. And I wanted to give Tanya, Ryan's mum, a girl. I feel so bad. And I was like, God, she
deserves a girl.
Yeah, she's going to be crying herself to sleep when I tell her it's a boy. I mean, I think I'm a boy mum through and through.
You were shocked when you found out?
We were shocked, but I think I'm a boy mum through and through. Like, even before I got pregnant, I was like, I'm going to have boys. I just knew it.
So yeah, I had a gut that it was a boy, and I don't know, I just really wanted. Maybe talking about manifestation, we were talking about that earlier. Maybe that was what it was. But when we got our gender scan, I was certain then it was a girl because of the way that the sonographer behaved.
Like the knob theory.
So we said in the room, we don't want to find out.
Right.
So top tip that would pass on to anybody who wants to find out their gender, and my best friend Kate suggested this, is don't find out in the room with a sonographer, because you'll never give your most authentic reaction.
Oh.
Because you've got a stranger beside you.
Yeah.
So she said, if you can, like, get the sonographer to keep it secret and close your eyes, and then when you leave, find out the 2 of you, and just the 2 of you. So you've got that really special moment, which we did. And I'm so glad Kate gave me that advice, because...
How did you do that?
We got an envelope. So they put, obviously, that it was a little boy in the envelope. And then they also gave us a confetti cannon.
Oh, right.
But we didn't have anyone with us.
Right.
We just did it, the 2 of us.
We just done an envelope. And me and Ryan had written our predictions in envelopes, because we hadn't told each other either. The whole time.
Idea.
The whole time we didn't say anything.
Yeah.
And then we both wrote our predictions down.
Did you, like, film your reaction or anything?
Yeah, in the car. We're just in the car, opening both of our envelopes.
Yeah.
And they both said girl. And then we open the envelope and it says boy.
I love that. That's so good.
And we're both in shock. Yeah. I was like, what?
We are utterly astounded when we look back at the video of it. So yeah, that's my top tip. If you're going to find out your gender, if you want it to be a really private and authentic moment, try and
that's a good
try
thing.
and
I
keep
never
it to
really
yourself.
thought about that. Like, I never, but I suppose I maybe subconsciously did, because I didn't do it. But
yeah,
that's a really nice tip.
But we did the 17-week scan, all absolutely grand. So came out of that thinking, going into the 20-week, what could go wrong?
Yeah, everything's perfect. Dun dun dun.
What could go wrong? How wrong were we?
So you go to your 20-week scan.
Go to our 20-week scan at our
local
hospital that we were meant to give birth in. Yeah, like we got asked to leave. So we basically went for the normal scan and they checked his heart. They obviously check if they're growing okay. And she went through everything. Everything seemed okay. She also confirmed that he was a boy. And then towards the very end, she said, I'm going to ask you to step out for maybe half an hour and come back. And I said, okay. And I was like, anything like that we should be worried about? And she's like, no, I just can't see a stomach. And I was like, oh, right, okay. And she was like, the way we see a stomach on an ultrasound is based on baby swallowing. So it could just be opportunistic. We're not seeing baby.
Yeah, the way he's lying, or
yeah, we might not be seeing him swallow right now because they swallow your amniotic fluid.
Yeah.
So it could just be that he's not doing that right now. So come back in 30 minutes, we'll probably capture it. And if I'm honest, I didn't really think anything of it.
Yeah.
So
why would you?
Yeah, we went, had a cup of tea. My best friend was actually also was giving birth at this very moment in time, or had just given birth.
In the same hospital?
And I remember, she'd just given birth to her little boy and telling her I was in for my scan and her saying, come up, like just come up and see us. And I remember at the time thinking, oh, like we're waiting for 30 minutes, like we'll see you soon. Like,
yeah, it's not enough time I want to see properly.
Yeah. And went back in and she was like, nope, not seeing a stomach. And I remember at that point when we got taken in, so going back to the point about various different people in at the same time, people were just starting to get their scans. And I just remember thinking, this is really hard for us. I can't even begin to imagine how that must feel for somebody else who's waiting to have that scan done to them. Like that must put the fear.
It's on, like when you're getting it done, they're so quiet.
Oh,
and they don't look at you, and you're trying to read their face as well.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, you can imagine these other people sitting going, oh my God, can they find us something? Like
100%. I was scanning the ultrasound being like, what can I see? Can I see it? Like,
not that you know what you're looking for.
No, I have no clue. Anyway, and she basically said at that point, give me a second, I'm going to get my superior. So our supervisor came in.
How did you feel at that moment though?
Oh, my heart just sank. I felt like sick of myself. Like, you just get like that. Your heart drops. And the supervisor just came in and said, we cannot see a stomach. She was like, this happens fairly regularly, so I don't want you worrying too much about it, but it also could mean something more. So we need to send you up to the fetal medicine unit and urgently. And at this point, it was a Friday.
Don't worry, but it's urgent.
And it was a Friday afternoon, and I'm sitting being like, we're not going to get seen.
No.
And we're going to worry about this all weekend. But they were like, we will phone them and then they'll phone us back and then either they'll phone you directly or we'll phone you, but someone will be in touch. I was like, right, okay. Very muddy around what that was going to look and feel like. But anyway, we didn't even get out of the car park and we had a phone call.
Oh, really? And that is worrying as well, isn't it?
And I remember, I'll get emotional at this bit. I remember walking to the car, seeing my best friend Kate's car, literally parked opposite ours, and I hadn't even noticed it.
And you were going in?
No. And I just remember thinking, you've got, and she doesn't know this, so she's going to hear it the podcast for the first time. I just remember thinking, she's got her baby. I might not get that. Oh, Meghan. And I couldn't bring myself to go up and see. I was so desperate to see her.
Yeah. So
desperate because I worried sick about her in labour. And yeah, I just was like, I can't bring myself. And she doesn't need to know this. She was messaging me, being like, how's the scan going? I was like, she doesn't need to know this because she's in a baby bubble. And anyway, we got in the car and I just said to Paul, and my mum obviously and dad, they knew, and Paul's parents, that we had the scan and they were champing at the bit just to hear it all went okay. And then I had to then say, Paul, we need to phone my parents to say we're not coming home because they had the dog. And I was like, and it was the first time I said to Paul, I can't
tell him this.
I can't speak. I need you to talk. And he just looked at me and he went, I've got it. And I just remember in that car driving, I'm like, I have never seen like Paul just go into this like business mode.
Yeah.
And it was like protection mode as well. And he just went, hey, it's me. I'm with Meghan. I'm in the car. She's fine. We're fine. But we're not sure if baby's fine. Meghan's just not in a place to be able to speak right now. But we're on the way to the fetal medicine unit at the Royal Infirmary. We'll phone you when we know something. And then my mum just went...
your mum will be worried sick.
And she just turned it around and said on the phone, okay, no worries. And she just knew. that I was just sitting there in the car. And she went, oh, she just went, Megs, I'm here. You've got this. And it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. I just know it. Just keep going. And I couldn't even respond in that moment. But it was like she just knew.
For those who are listening right now, we're both sitting in tears.
Yeah, sorry. But yeah, I hadn't really thought about that until now. But she just knew, and it was like she was almost just reaching out to me through the phone.
Oh, her baby.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we got up to the fetal medicine, and we're taken pretty much instantaneously. And the team there are phenomenal. And for anyone who doesn't know what the fetal medicine unit team do, they are a special unit that basically deal with complex pregnancies. And it's composed of the most beautiful midwives who have got the most beautiful nature. They are and I say that they're angels. And you go into a very clinical scan room and you have an obstetrician who is my obstetrician throughout the whole of my pregnancy. And they scanned us and they did various different measurements, and they said to us at that point, we don't see a stomach. And at that point, obviously, they were like, we're going to explain why you don't see it.
Yeah.
Because immediately you sit there and think, well, is it because he doesn't have a stomach? Is a stomach not
well, that's what I'm thinking right now.
developed?
I'm sitting thinking this right now.
Had no idea. And they did the test and they basically said what we think it could be is a range of things. It could be, and they go through the worst to like the best case scenario. So they start with the worst, and they were like,
they always do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, could be a syndrome, it could be a genetic condition, or it could be something called it could be more like something called esophageal atresia, which is more mechanical about his esophagus and he's not able to swallow potentially, and it could be a blockage in his esophagus, something as simple as that. And I laugh because I look back now and when they said it's something as simple as that.
Yeah, as if that's simple.
Well, as if that condition, now knowing what that condition is simple, and it's really not. So anyway, they were like, the only way we're going to find out is by doing multiple scans. So a bit like at St John's, they were like, we just might not be catching him swallow. So if you're comfortable, we'll do multiple scans over the next 4 hours. Which basically meant that we'd have to go get one, go away, get one, go away. I mean, we spent a fortune in that Royal Infirmary, Marks and Spencer's that day. And we went for 4 scans and there was still no stomach.
Right.
And then they said, if we do not see, after the 4 scans, if we don't see any stomach, we will have to do, or our recommendation is an amniocentesis.
And that's the needle into the...
So a needle goes basically through your stomach and through the lining of your stomach and then directly into amniotic fluid, and they would draw out some of the amniotic fluid. Now, an amniocentesis comes with a 1% chance of miscarriage. Right. So it's still, a 1% seems really small, but it's a percentage, right? It's a high.
Yeah, there's still the risk.
There's a risk of it. It can put you into early labour. So there's real risk associated with it, but it's really the only way to be able to identify. So we then said, we need to go and think about this. This is over the weekend. They offered to do one there and then, but Paul and I said, look, can we have like 15 minutes just to go away and discuss this? And I'm really glad we did do that. Yeah. Because we needed a bit of time just to
process, talk to each other,
and just be like, where's your head at? Yeah. And I think that was huge. So we did that. And then we both agreed. And more so Paul, actually, I was more like, let's get the amnio. Let's just do it. And because I was like, I want to know that they're doing something. Yeah,
we need to know.
Mm-hmm. And Paul at the time, really pragmatic. He's very, very logical. And he was like, well, let's be really, like, put it in simple terms. We're going to do nothing over the weekend with this. So why are we rushing into this when actually we could come back on Monday, they do another scan and they may see a stomach. They gave us an example where they had done exactly the same situation as ours, done a scan, and then 3 days later someone's had a stomach. Yeah. So Paul was like, I've got to have a bit of hope that could be the case.
I know, but then the agonise, like, I'd be the same as you, agonising over it the weekend. Yeah. You're going to do nothing but worry.
Yeah. So, but it was one of those moments where I was like, we are a team. Yeah. As much as it's my body,
this is your baby.
It's our baby. Yeah. And it's the first time in our whole relationship, and I feel bad saying that, where I've really considered Paul and like his view. genuinely, sorry, Paul.
That is so funny.
I feel really bad, but it's
But
true.
I know exactly what you mean.
Previously I'd be like, it's my body. Like,
Yeah, no, this is
you
about
don't get
me.
a say. But I was like, it's our baby. So I was like, fair, right? Okay. So
Paul.
we took the weekend, the most hellish weekend ever. Told our family, as in like our mums, and we told our parents.
Yeah.
So and then we went back on the Monday, did the amnio, which is really not pleasant for anyone who has to have an amniocentesis. It's not nice.
Did it hurt?
Yeah, it's really, really. So they warn you. They're like, it's going to feel like you're cramping. So the only way I can explain it is imagine anyone who's given birth, it's like early contractions, right? Braxton Hicks probably. So it's like you're going to cramp when that goes in because basically your tummy muscle's going to spasm.
Yeah, they're like protecting itself.
Yeah. So while they do it, but the hardest part is you cannot move.
Oh, right, okay.
And the worst bit, I think, also is that they have a bit like this, a screen, which is obviously with your ultrasound, and you can see baby move.
Oh, so you can see this happening. Right,
You can see the needle go in, but you can also see, I could see Blake, I could see him move, and all I could think is, dear God,
don't
stay still.
Don't you move.
Just stay still. So I'm like literally looking at this screen, like to my left, and just like manifesting and like almost talking to him, being like, don't move.
Yeah.
Stay still. And he did. So it had the amnio, and then they basically said, as part of the amniocentesis, they would check for the conditions, and they would be able to check for genetic conditions. The one thing they couldn't check was if it was something to do with esophagus, but they were like, if we rule those other two out, we then have an answer. And it would be likely, their suspicion, the third thing. So we waited. They said it'll take potentially 10 days to get your results back. Meanwhile, we were due to go on holiday. So we found out it wasn't any of the conditions. So like Downs, Patos, Edwards. So we found out it wasn't any of them. And then we also then found out, I think it was like 3 or 4 days later, that it wasn't genetic. And when I say genetic, meaning like it's a genetic condition that both Paul and I have certain chromosomes that would mean the baby couldn't survive it with the womb.
Right.
So both scenarios would have resulted in us having to terminate or have a stillbirth.
Right.
So both came back. And that's probably the worst period, like just waiting for those results. They came back and they were negative, which felt like the biggest relief.
Yeah.
Like we honestly, that moment we both found out and I got the phone call was just the best news ever. But we weren't out the woods yet.
Yeah. There's still a reason why they can't see.
And the reason is still a serious one. It's a medical condition. So, but weirdly we were optimistic because the way that they'd framed it to us in this clinic was like,
that's the best case scenario.
Like, I don't know why the pair of us were. I think we were just so delighted that we still had a viable pregnancy.
Yeah,
because we really wanted this baby. So got home, and that's when things really changed in the sense of we would be with the fetal medicine. So our care changed. So we no longer were allowed to give birth in St John's.
Right.
So they were like, all your care will be with us, so you're shifting hospital. So you're giving birth now in the Royal, and all your care will be here. And every 2 weeks, we had to be scanned. And at that point, when we came home from that holiday, we obviously went and saw them, and they said our suspicion. And I thought it was quite cleverly done because pretty much every single scan we had up until Blake was born was all based on suspicion.
Right. It's like when a celebrity does something and it's like, allegedly.
Exactly.
Covering their own backs.
And they were totally doing
it for the right reason. Yes. They didn't want to confirm or deny.
Yeah, but they're like giving you enough of like, and I'm sitting there being like, suspicion, can you give me percentiles? Like, can you give me the probability?
It's like, I know. No, you need to tell me exactly what's happening. Yeah. That'd be me as well.
Yeah.
Of course it would be.
So, fast forward, I can't remember when it was, but we eventually, I think it was 4 weeks after that 20-week scan, so about 24 weeks, we then, once we were home, we then were invited to something called the surgical list. So they got us in, and it was with my obstetrician. So again, fetal medicine plus the surgical list team, which was our paediatric surgeon and a consultant from the NICU.
Right.
So that was like our kind of my tag team for me and Blake's care. And in that surgical list, they call it, the surgical meeting, basically, they did the scan, And I'll never forget it. We have a really lovely relationship with Blake's surgeon, and he came in and he's to my right hand side. I'm on the table having the bed, getting the scan, and he is looking at, there is obviously the screen with the scan and the ultrasound on the left, and then the obstetrician has got like the mobile.
Yeah, the sonographer.
Yeah, like she's doing the scan, and she's looking at obviously the images in front of her, and he is going, so has he got this? Has he got that? Has it? So, and what I didn't realise at the time is they were clarifying, did he have any vacteral associations?
Which means?
So, and you're going to ask me this. So they confirmed in that meeting that they suspected that he had esophageal atresia.
They're confirming their suspicions. Mm-hmm. Does that mean they're confirming it's real, or confirming that we definitely suspect this?
They basically, that part, we're saying he has this, but we can't
confirm it.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, which basically, in a nutshell, is that his esophagus hadn't developed correctly. They couldn't tell us exactly what type of esophageal atresia he has. So there's various different types at that point in time. But they were like, we definitely have the suspicion that he does not have an esophagus, which is why you're not seeing his tummy. Right. So he's not swallowing the amniotic fluid. Therefore, it's because he can't swallow.
So he has a stomach, but not an esophagus.
So he's born without an esophagus that's developed correctly, and therefore born unable to swallow.
Right.
And with that comes usually something called vacteral associations, which is how do you call it, when it's like an abbreviation almost for different things that can be associated. So the V stands for vertebrae. I knew you were going to ask me this. I actually Googled it last night for all of them because there's quite a lot.
So things that could be affected.
So usually babies that have esophageal atresia have one of these at least, or multiple. Okay. So for vacteral, basically, so you've got a vertebrae issue, so you could have a vertebrae anomaly, so spinal issues. They call it anal atresia, which is basically when their bowels aren't connected. Cardiovascular issues, so they could have a heart defect. Right. You could have tracheofistula, which is a fistula that basically a connection between their trachea and their esophagus.
Yeah.
Like renal issues, and then limb defects. So you tend to find some babies are born with a limb deficiency of some kind as well. Right. So they were like, it could be any of these. But I just remember thinking, I looked at his surgeon and he was going through and being like, yep, he's got that, yep, he's got that, yeah, he's got that, meaning that he didn't have any vacteral at that point. And then they took us into this room and just said, and it was a room that they tell you when you've lost a baby.
God. And
it was the coldest room. I just remember it. It was really bleak. And they just said, so we can, at this point in time, confirm our suspicion that he has esophageal atresia, and this is what it means. And it's basically a lifelong condition, and that your baby will require a period in the NICU, and he will require surgery post-birth. To what extent, we can't tell you that right now. And he could have other associations and conditions linked to this as a result.
But we can't tell yet.
But we can't tell you that. And they were like, we haven't picked any up on the scan. But
it doesn't mean that he doesn't have.
And they were like, you're not going to know that until you give birth.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's kind of when our world changed.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And sorry, that was a lot.
No, well.
But it is a lot.
It is a lot. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know how to word this question because I don't even think you can answer it. How did you feel like about this? Did your mind switch into a kind of, like we were talking about before, fight or flight? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Just focused mode of like, right, we just need to do this at that point? Or were you a nervous wreck, which then could affect your pregnancy even more? Or like, how did it
affect us?
Yeah. How did that affect you and even your health in general and your pregnancy at that point? Because they tell you don't be too stressed, don't of this. Mm-hmm. How can you not be stressed with that?
So I think, to answer your question, the fight or flight definitely went into that mode.
Right.
Where it was, right, well, what does this mean? But Paul and I deal with it very differently.
Right.
Paul's a Googler and very matter of fact. Yep. Not a worrier, but like a Googler, so he just likes to know the facts.
Yep.
I'm the kind of person where I'm just like very like, right, this is the situation. How do we get through it?
Yeah.
So I think we both kind of complemented each other a little bit. He did a lot of the data gathering. I personally chose not to because I was like, I think I could go down. I was terrified that I'd go down a rabbit hole and that would be really hard.
Yeah.
And I was worried that I wouldn't be able to get out of that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So I think I went to fight or flight. I also went into a bit of like cocoon mode.
Yeah.
So I just removed myself from everything and everyone.
Do you think that, you say cocoon mode, when you say that, I hear...
Like I didn't really leave the house.
I hear depression. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hear like when you say cocoon mode, I hear, oh my God. And you went into yourself and
so the way I process, and at that point I was in shock, right?
Yeah,
so I think I was in shock. I was feeling a bit of grief because I was like,
well, that was my next question. That was going to be my next question.
I think it was like the way I would, like I would describe it is I almost went into kind of like as if you were grieving
the baby that you thought you were going to have,
and the journey and the pregnancy and the life that we wanted to have and envisaged. So yeah, I really removed myself. I didn't talk about it. I
think that's like totally normal to have that feeling though. Like, yeah. And I think
self-preservation and I think processing, like I think there was a huge part where I was like, me as mum, I need to process this before I speak to anyone else, because I also knew, I kept saying to Paul, everyone's going to have a million questions and I don't have the answers to them.
And no one's going to know what to say. No one can say anything here to make me feel better.
No one can change this. No one can make it better. I just have to get through it. And so I definitely went into kind of shutdown mode. And also, my best friends had all just basically given birth. So like my best friend Kate had just given birth. My best friend Emma had also just given birth. They had like really healthy babies. Strangely enough, before you ask this question, because you might, is I never resented that. I never felt like, oh, like I really want that. I didn't get that envy. I was also weirdly in protective mode of them. Yeah. I was like,
you didn't want to tell them.
I didn't want to worry them. I didn't want to, I just wanted them to enjoy like early motherhood.
And that's you're such a good friend for that.
And that is
shock horror. I'm getting up to it.
Makeup, right? I think there's an element where you want to protect. I wanted to protect my best friends because I knew exactly they were going through the journey I wanted to go through. Yeah. So I was like, I would.
And you don't want your friends to feel how you're feeling. Mm-mm. You wouldn't want anyone to feel like that.
And they'd worry sick. Yeah. And I was like, I can't have them worry sick. They've got enough on their plate. Me. Yeah. I was like, they've got enough going on. Yeah. So yeah, I went in self kind of like shutdown mode a little bit. And I just didn't talk about it. And then we eventually started to speak to people about it. But it was like a very, very, very tight group. And I didn't obviously post any announcements about us being pregnant or anything. I don't think I posted anything until I was like in my late 20 week mark. And when I put it out there, I actually did it intentionally because I said to Paul, like, I hated being pregnant.
Oh, did you? Mm-hmm. You still didn't?
But I think it became this. Yeah.
Did you enjoy it up until that point though? That's or did you overall just not really enjoy it?
I didn't mind being pregnant, but I was never one of these people that was like, I love
this.
I've never been that person. Like,
see anyone that says that?
I'm like,
I don't believe you.
I'm like, I don't know how.
Yeah, I don't believe you.
My body changed and I didn't recognise my body adapting. That's a whole other conversation. But I just struggled, I think, with like the changes. And I was just never one of these people that was like, oh my God, I love myself being pregnant. Yeah. And I just really didn't. And I think maybe the nausea didn't help. Yeah. But certainly from that point on, I really hated being pregnant.
I think that's an everyday reminder of what's happening and what you thought your life was going to be, but it's not. Yeah. And that's totally understandable. Like, I don't think you need to feel any kind of shame or badness about that, because any woman would feel like that.
Yeah. So I didn't enjoy being pregnant. The big, I think, part of not being in a place where I feel I could enjoy it either was, as part of his condition, they said I could have a stillbirth.
Oh God.
So I could miscarry. Yeah. I could go
you're
into
on
full
edge.
term. So I never really enjoyed it because I was like, again, self-preservation. I can't speak. put my teeth back in. Self-preservation mode, I just didn't want to get excited because I was like, I don't want to give birth and then
Yeah, of course.
not have Blake. So,
and I feel like obviously with any pregnancy, there's always going to be that worry. There's always a little bit of worry with it, but with you having all the information that you know what is happening,
it was a probability, rather like a higher probability.
Yeah, this is a real. There is a real chance of this.
Yeah, so that was really tough. So, yeah, how I felt was, and I don't think it's hit me yet.
Yeah,
I think trauma is definitely.
Did you like cry a lot? Did you like, or were you just kind of? Because you know me, I would have been crying.
No, I had my
eyes out.
I did. I had my moments. Oh, sorry, I'm knocking the mic. I definitely had my moments where, I had to myself probably, and Paul. He was my absolute rock.
Yeah. How was he during this? Was he keeping it, holding down the fort for you? Like
he was. He was really, really strong. Had my back in every essence.
Yeah.
But he was hurting.
Yeah.
And I remember there was just one day we're in bed and it was like 5 o'clock, and that's the thing, I went to bed I would just go to my bed. Maybe it is a little bit depression, I don't know when I look back now.
But I think it's saying like
it was my safe space.
Understandably.
I just was like, I just want it. In my head I was like, if I go to sleep, am I going to wake up and this is just a nightmare?
Yeah.
I think that's where I was
when
at.
When you're asleep, you're not thinking about it, so.
Yeah, it honestly was. But I remember we were lying in bed and I just said to Paul, I was just like, why us?
Yeah.
Why us? And then why not us, right? I look back now and I say that all the time. I'm like, why not us? Like, why shouldn't it be us? But there was a lot of that and processing that. Yeah, and I remember that night Paul just breaking with me, and he just sat with the emotion and just got emotional with me, and actually that's probably exactly what I needed to do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Because he was obviously feeling it, the same thing.
Yeah. So
and and it is one of those things, it's like there is nothing, he would be feeling so helpless. There's nothing he can do.
Mm-mm. Yeah. But I don't think we fully appreciated just what our life would look like at that point either. There was so much unknown.
Yeah. So you've been told this. You know that you're going to have to go to the NICU. He's going to have a surgery when he's born.
Yeah.
Did they tell you that you were going to have to deliver early?
So not as early as he came.
Right, okay. So what did they say? So
they had forewarned us that an association, and I mentioned it in the last podcast, of Blake's condition, esophageal atresia, is that he can't swallow. Yep. So he doesn't swallow your amniotic fluids.
So you have a build-up of fluid.
So that makes sense now. So I was a Buddha in my pregnancy.
I was saying this to my friend the other day. We went, literally Wednesday, we went out for coffee and she had excess fluid and she was talking about it. I was like, oh my God. And I had said, like, there was pictures of her and she was like, yeah, I'm huge, like, because of this. But she was like that with her first pregnancy as well.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm just thinking, I actually haven't seen a lot of pictures of you pregnant.
I was like, none. I didn't post on Instagram.
Did you take any?
Oh, loads. I've got like a whole album. So and I do think sometimes I'm like, do I just post a pregnancy album on like, or like a few photos on my Instagram?
Like a highlight.
Like almost be like, I don't know.
This is what it was like by the way.
The pregnancy files that didn't actually come out the camera roll.
So well, I post that on our social media.
Yeah, there we go. So I actually got Paul to take pictures of me before all of that we knew about what was going on.
Yeah.
Of me in my underwear.
Yeah.
Not raunchy at all.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been raunchy at the start, but the time I was a big feckin' Buddha, it definitely was not raunchy.
That's the thing, when people are like, pregnancy's beautiful, you're like, yeah, no it is not.
No. And I also wore the most bland beige underwear, so there was nothing sexy about it.
Primark pants.
Literally. Nude, so like, it was awful. And Paul was like, why are you doing this? And I only started doing it from 12 weeks. And it was actually intentional because I think I said earlier, like, I just didn't enjoy pregnancy. I didn't enjoy the way my body was. And I really struggled.
I didn't really take a lot of pictures, if I'm perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
I didn't do like a weekly thing.
No.
Every now and again I took one.
To mark it. Because but I remember saying to Paul, like, maybe this will help me change my lens of my body if I see myself. Because all I could see was I can't fit any of my jeans. Yeah. I also made me realise I wear far too tight jeans in general. Paul was like, you need to get more jeans.
Jeans are a different topic. God.
He's like, you wear far too tight clothes. And I was like, noted. Thanks, Paul. But anyway, I've got pictures. So I have pictures and I took them right up until I went into preterm labour. So I took one once every week. Paul would curse me every time I did it. He's like, why are we doing this again? And I was like, because one day I might look back on these and I was like, I'm not stopping.
Yeah.
Because of this situation. This doesn't change.
This is part of your story now. It's part of your life.
And I was like, I'm not stopping. So let's get on with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have got pictures, and obviously we went on holiday and we have some really lovely pictures of us on holiday. But I just never shared it. So yeah, people wouldn't have really seen me unless they saw me in person.
I didn't announce my pregnancy until I was 22 weeks, I think.
Yeah.
23 weeks. In fact, 24 weeks, because 4 weeks later I had him. I didn't announce, I didn't post it either.
So I wonder though if it's a bit of like instinct, because I said to Paul, in fact, was it Paul? Yeah, I think it was Paul. I also said to my hairdresser, I was getting my hair done like 3 or 4 days before, and she was like, I didn't even know you're pregnant. And I was like, I know, I haven't put it out there. I was like, I just want to get past this 20-week scan.
Weird that, eh? I think mine was, it's funny because one of my best friends, Chloe, when she was pregnant, she didn't really announce it either. And I think because she, I hope she doesn't mind me saying this, had a little bit of trouble conceiving, and she knew a lot of people who were also struggling, and she felt like she didn't want to upset anyone, which is really sad.
Having gone through that journey though, she's thinking of others. Yeah.
And then I kind of thought, yeah, well, do you know what? That is quite sad.
Yeah.
And I thought, what if something bad happens?
Well, that was my fear.
And that was my fear.
Yeah.
A little bit. I thought, what if something bad happens and then I need to tell everybody on Facebook and our granny?
Exactly.
Like, why?
I think for me,
it's nothing to do with them.
Yeah. And that's harder to do, right?
Yeah.
It's hard enough to deal with a loss, let alone having to go and process it and then tell the world about it.
Yeah.
So I didn't really.
I mean, more to the people, like, if you want to do that, yeah, cool. And eventually we did.
Yeah.
Put it, because I went on holiday and I was like, I want to just post normally, like how I normally would on holiday. So if something bad happens here, I don't want to have to tell
but it's
Susan
funny how
down the road
that's how
that I've not spoken to 5 years.
Weird how our brains were made up, right? And that's our logical thought process.
And then
whereas,
here we go.
Yeah.
What happened? Anyway, carry on. Your photos.
I can't remember what the question was in the end. Sorry.
What was the question?
About, like, maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm pregnant. Oh, polyhydramnios.
Yeah, right. Okay, you're fluid.
Early.
Sorry, yeah, you're fluid.
Standard.
Mum brain.
Sorry. Or waffle brain. So, yeah, they had said they were like, with you having polyhydramnios, there is a high chance that you will go early.
Right.
Because of the fact that you'll be too big.
Yeah.
And you'll get really uncomfortable. So they said they would probably try and get to me to 37 weeks. They were like, if we can get you to 40 weeks, that is amazing. Yeah. But we'll try and get
37 still full term.
Exactly. So at the time I was like, okay, that's not that bad. So that's fine. And secretly there's a bit in my head where I think I said earlier, like I was apprehensive about labour maybe, because I was like, what's it going to look like? And in my head I was like, well, if he comes 37 weeks, he might not be enormous by that point. So I felt a bit reassured that 37 weeks.
He might not be enormous. Is that what you went through your head?
Well, he might not be.
No, yeah. That's what
he might. Well, Paul was a 10-pound baby.
Yeah, but that's only 2 weeks early. 3 weeks early?
Yeah, but like a lot of growth happens, I'm sure, in the last like couple of weeks.
It's only 3 weeks, isn't it?
Well, so someone had said to me, they were like, they go up a pound every week.
Do they? God, there you go.
I mean, if that's not true, please don't shoot the messenger. But yeah, so in my head, I was like,
holy.
Right? So I was like, Manoon, I can't deal with that.
I was scared to have a big baby. Like,
yeah, Paul's got a big head. So I was like, I cannot deal with that. So anyway, yeah, 37 weeks, they said that was as early as they thought it would go. They were like, you might go earlier, but we'll do everything we can to prevent that happening. No way did I think that we'll be talking about him coming as early as he did.
Yeah. Just going back, sorry, I have an extra question about your fluid. Was it just the belly that was big or everywhere?
So initially it was just my belly, but then I found towards later stages of my pregnancy, when I look at pictures, like I'd look as if I'm holding a bit of fluid, but mainly my belly.
Yeah.
Like I literally
That's not too bad though, because it could have went into your face.
Yeah, it didn't really go into my
legs.
Face. My upper legs definitely, I'd say towards the end. But yeah, but I kept fit during my pregnancy. So I kept exercising. So when I knew everything was going really Pete Tong, I knew I was like, right, so you talked about how did I feel? I was like, how do I
control a part of this?
How do I keep myself going? How do I get to full term without being a wreck?
Yeah.
And try and enjoy as much of this pregnancy as I can. So for me, I'm a big into exercise. So I had no idea what I could and couldn't do in pregnancy, particularly then knowing what
was happening.
So I used a PT called 365 Female, and shout out huge to Michelle and Nicole, who were amazing throughout my pregnancy, and they gave me like a personalised plan. And every day, I mean, I exercise more then than I do now. Every day, and it wasn't like extreme exercise, but it was enough for me to get in the gym, feel like I was moving my body,
and just make you feel a little bit better as well,
took my mind off it, and feel a little bit like me. I felt like I really lost my identity in my pregnancy, and with everything that went on, that hour just gave me a bit of Meghan back, which was really important. So I think when I look back at myself, possibly the reason the rest of my body wasn't like flooded with fluid, maybe it was because I was still exercising and moving, and I was walking Nelly. I'd walk 3 miles a day. I was a hell of a lot fitter then than I am now, but that definitely helped. I think that gave me the headspace, kept me going, and I think maybe helped the fact that I wasn't as big as I could have been.
No, I just thought, does it spread everywhere? That was my thought.
I think it can, but I look back now, it's probably more, I'd say, upper legs and tummy.
Okay. When did labour start for you then? Because you're saying they wanted to get you to 37.
Yes.
And he was significantly before that.
Yes. To prevent you going into early labour, we will explore other alternatives than getting baby out sooner. Right. Which would be an amniotic fluid reduction. And they were like, there are people that we have to do that with, and that may be the case with you, but we'll just
see how it goes.
We'll just track it. Okay. Which they did, which is why I did every 2 weeks.
Right.
So, I was getting monitored every 2 weeks. I had in my clinics, so the fetal medicine clinics, they were always on a Thursday, and that same week, but the Saturday afterwards, I remember Paul going up north to go and cycle the Loch Ness E-tape, and he was away for the weekend. We had never had a conversation at that stage about what happens if I go in to labour.
Well, why would it though? Like,
at that point I was 28 weeks, so it was just not even.
Yeah, it's not in your wheelhouse.
Not in my periphery. He went up to Inverness. Didn't think anything of it. I then went through to Glasgow to meet a friend for brunch, and I just remember that morning, like as the day kind of then went on, feeling really heavy. Right. And I just felt, oh God. And I remember thinking 28 weeks. I think that's third trimester mark. There or thereabouts. Yeah,
30 weeks is third
trimester.
Third trimester.
So I remember thinking, like, I think you're right, but I remember thinking I'm not far away from that point in my pregnancy. Is this just things moving, going downwards?
Yeah. So normal pregnancy symptoms.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Never thinking much of it, but I felt pressure. It's probably the best way to describe it. I did brunch, and I remember, I still look back now, and I was chatting away to my friend, and she actually, funnily enough, told me at that point she was pregnant.
Does she?
And I remember thinking, I can't then moan about being really uncomfortable because you're really early in your pregnancy and you don't need to hear this. Again, thinking of somebody else. But I remember just sitting on this seat, and I still look back now, and it must have been the strangest thing. I just kept on doing this.
Yeah, like
almost like swinging. But I was obviously trying to take the pressure off down below.
Yeah.
And I went to the bathroom, and I just remember sitting on the toilet and thinking, this feels different.
Right.
And then thinking, fuck, this is not 28 weeks on, it's going to feel like.
Yeah, like, oh God, I can't do another 10 weeks of this.
That was what went through my mind, not, I could be in labour. And then I stayed for like another hour and a half. And then I was walking back to the car. And I remember walking along this particular path, and on my left-hand side there was like a wall. I think I might have told you the story about the octopus. This is the strangest thing ever. So for those that don't know, a baby that goes to the NICU, there is an association with octopuses, and I think it's because like the tentacles are meant to encourage them to play with those rather than tubes. So there's a jellycat octopus in particular that I think is quite commonly associated, and it's blue. and it was on this wall. And I knew this because obviously they had told us when we did our surgical list, you are going to have a stint in the NICU.
Yeah.
And I'd done a bit of research. And on that holiday, remember we talked about listening to podcasts and there was nothing out there. Well, I remember scouting Spotify, being like, there must be something I can listen to help prepare me for this. And there's nothing. And all I remember was, I know that that's a symbol. I just remember thinking, that's odd. But then kept walking. Drove home. And then I was speaking to Paul on the phone for like 4 or 5 minutes before I even said to him, I feel a bit different. But then at that point, I said to him, I just feel a bit of pressure. And he was like, wait, you've just talked to me for a full 45 minutes without saying a thing. Go and get yourself checked. And I was like, no, I'm not getting checked because it'll be nothing. And I can't be bothered going all the way up to the Royal Infirmary.
Because you have to go to the Royal. Ugh.
Yeah, I was like, it's such a trek. And I'd had dinner plans with my mum and my gran. And I was like, I don't want to let them down.
I want to go out for dinner, right?
Yeah. And I was like, I just don't want to let them down. And then Paul basically said to me, you need to go and put baby first and you and go just get checked. And if you don't want to go up to the Royal, go to St John's.
Yeah.
So I was like, right, fine. And if I'm honest, I just really did it just to
please him.
Shut him up.
Yeah.
And then I phoned my mum, went up to, in fact, it's a lie, phoned my mum, then phoned St John's. And St John's, when I told them my situation, they're like, look, just come up, we'll scan you. If there's nothing going on, we'll send you home. No bother. Great. So mum and I went up, mum drove. I did pack a bag. Good old mum come to the rescue.
You packed a bag? Where
I did.
Yeah.
But
how did you feel doing that?
Oh, the bag was like the biggest like combination of random stuff you've ever come across. Like, it wasn't a hospital bag. It was like a night as if I was going to a hotel or something. I was like, what? So yeah, mum drove up and had this hospital bag, went in, and my mum said, and Sarah and I's mums met recently, and they both said the same thing when they both saw us for the first time, the days they took us up to the hospital. They thought, you're standing and walking funny. And I've seen that before.
Yeah, you're walking weird. That's what my mum said to me.
And my mum said to me, you're standing funny in the kitchen. And she's like, I never said to you at the time, but she was like, at that point, I just thought, you remind me of me, of when I was in labour. So I went up, and then they took me in, and then the usual thing, triage. And I just said, look, I'm just feeling a bit different. I'm feeling a bit twingy, and I'm getting a bit of pressure. Like, I just want to get checked over. And she was like, that's fine. We'll like just put you on the CTG machine. The machine? Yeah, it is. Yeah. And yeah, they did that. So they had him on and they were like, yeah, he's happy, baby's happy, it's great. And I was like, awesome. And then they were like, we're just going to check you down below. And I remember them saying to me at this point, and I laughed really hard because I was like, you've asked me this question right in front of my mum in the first place, but also I'm 28 weeks pregnant. I look like a Buddha, really. But she was like, is there any chance that you could potentially have had intercourse in the last 24 hours?
They asked me that as well, and I was like, no.
And I just looked at her and I was like, do I look like I'd want to have intercourse? And she was like, we just have to ask that question because it can spur labour on.
Yeah.
And I was like, no chance. I was like, Godsy's come nowhere near this in a while. So yeah, right. Yeah, so then she was like, right, we'll do a couple of like just swabs. Didn't tell me what the swabs were for.
Yeah, they didn't tell me what the swabs were for either.
Yeah, did a swab and then she left the room. And
oh, she's not even saying it.
And I then said to my mum, I looked at her and I went, Mum, if I didn't know any better, I think I'm in labour. And then Mum just went, well, you trust your gut.
Because she's going, you are.
Mm-hmm. She's like, if you think you're in labour, you tell her when she comes back in and you trust your gut.
Just like when they asked me, do you think you could be in labour? But right. I'm like, nah, yeah. No chance.
I was like, I think I am. So she came back in and I didn't need to say. So she came back in and she sat on the edge of my bed and she just said, right, Meghan. And I had like my legs up, if you know what I mean. So like my knees were, sorry, I keep the mic, like this almost.
Yeah.
And she just put her hand on my leg.
Oh God, you just know what
like, reassuring. Say. And she just went, in the next 5 minutes, this room's going to change really quickly. And there's going to be a lot of people who are going to come in here because you're in labour. And we cannot deliver your baby because you're only 28 weeks. And we're going to have to blue light you up to the Royal Infirmary. At which point, I just looked at my mum and I looked at her and I went, I'm not ready.
Oh, this is giving me flashbacks as well. Like,
and I was like, I'm not ready. And the thing that
you
came
just
out
have
of my
a pure panic.
Yeah, all I could say was, I've not been to a single antenatal class.
I don't know how it's swaddle.
Literally, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I've not been to a class.
I don't know how it's swaddle,
I was like, my
baby.
first class isn't till Monday. Like, I can't do this. So yeah, that was our response. When I look back, I'm like mad.
And I bet they're looking at you like, well,
Well, she turned around and she was like, well, it's happening. We can't take you to the antenatal class on Monday. You're going. And then I was like, right, well, I need to phone my husband. And she was like, where is he? And I was like, he's in Inverness. And she was like, you could see her face.
oh God.
And I'm looking at her thinking, mm-hmm. And then
So were you dilated then? Or
they didn't check me. They refused to check me because obviously
in case it could.
there's a significant difference, obviously, between any baby that comes 30 weeks on. There's real strides in like their developmental state as a baby. So anything from 30 under, they've got real risk associated with their lungs not being developed. They could have a higher risk of brain bleeds. All things which they didn't tell me obviously then.
Yeah.
But I then learned when I got to the
I wonder
hospital.
what the swabs told them then.
So I then learned this when I was in the Royal. So they do a swab to check. You produce a hormone.
Right.
I don't know what the hormone is, but anyway, they do a check, and that hormone has, like, they obviously got a range, and if you go above that range, so the top range to suggest you're in labour is 200.
Right.
I then found out that I was at over 500.
Right. Well, that's obviously they were trying to give me the swabs, but I was already dilated.
So for you, it was like, well, we know.
Yeah.
Like, we can see. So it's like, whereas mine, they were like, and they also were like, we do not want to like spur anything on if we can. We could slow this down. So I then said to my mum, I need to phone Paul.
Yeah, God. What was that like? What did Paul say to you? Was he on the bike? Sorry, I'm busy. Can't talk right now.
He's
I watched.
Yeah,
that message.
So I didn't phone Paul. I phoned his dad.
Did you?
Mm-hmm. So
in case he was on the bike.
No, I phoned Paul's dad, and I just phoned him and said, "Are you in the?" I knew he was in the car because I could hear. You know, you're on in like a speaker. I was like, "Are you in the car?" And am I on speaker? And he went, "Yeah, you are." And I was like, and he was like, "I'm in the car with Siobhan, Jeff, and their friends." So it's Paul's sister and husband and then their friends. I'm just taking them down to Inverness for dinner. And immediately in my brain, I'm going, thank God you're going to Inverness, because Paul's parents live about 20 odd minutes away from it.
You just say, good, because you need to pick Paul up.
I went, good.
Did you say that?
I went, good. And he was like, everything okay? And I went, no. And I just crumbled.
Yeah, saying it out loud.
And I was like, I'm not doing okay, Donnie. I was like, I'm in labour. And I was like, and I need you to get to Paul. Because when I tell Paul this information, he's going to want to get down here as fast as he can.
And that could be dangerous.
And I need him here in one piece.
Yeah.
I was like, my little boy needs his dad. So I need you to drive him down the road to get to us. And thank God Paul's sister Siobhan was in the car. And she went, because Paul's dad just froze.
Yeah, I can imagine what he would have thought, like.
Oh my God. And she just went, Meghan, are you on your own? And I was like, no, I've got my mum. She's like, fine. She's like, Dad, turn the car around. We're going to go and she's like, drop us off. Do not worry about us. Drop us off. Meghan, Dad will be down to get Paul. Do not worry. We'll take care of this. I will take care of this. I've never been so thankful to Siobhan for that moment. She just took complete control.
Get shit done.
Literally. And she's like, Dad, turn the damn car around. So then I phoned Paul and I just said, Paul, I'm in labour. And he just went silent. And he was like, are you okay?
No.
Same as what Ryan did.
Yeah.
And I just went, I will be, but I need you to get down that road and your dad is on the way. And he was like, he's what? And I was like, yeah, I've got it all organised. You're getting picked up.
I'm in labour, but I've organised everything.
You're getting picked up. And he's like, what? And I was like, just, your dad's going to phone you and get yourself down the road and get yourself down the road in one piece. So yeah, he got down the road and he got put in an ambulance. And my mum obviously followed the ambulance.
Yeah.
And at that point, my contractions were 7 minutes apart. And I was starting to log them, and they put me in an ambulance with two midwives, obviously the fear that I would give birth. And the fear was that because he was 28 weeks, he would come very, very quickly.
Right.
And then I got taken to the Royal. And then, yeah, that's when I guess things started to change. So Paul came down. To be fair, he was there not long by the time we got there, which is amazing because it takes 3 hours to get down that road. And they then kind of said, right, Meghan, we're going to put you on these machines, check his heartbeat, all that stuff. They then said, because we think you're in labour, we're going to examine you. And I was 2 centimetres dilated at that point. They were like, we're going to start to give you steroids and magnesium sulfate.
Yeah.
Which steroids obviously helps with our lungs. Magnesium sulfate helps with preventing brain bleeds.
And you said you found that painful.
Oh, so the steroids was, I mean, it was just a killer of an injection. Honestly, I've got a picture on my phone. I had the biggest bruise on my bum cheek.
I got that as well, but I can't remember getting
You obviously
that.
had a very kind, gentle midwife. Mine, I think they were just so panicked. They were like, get this into her.
I honestly can't remember getting that.
Well, they gave me the first dose of steroids at St John's to get it in me quickly, and then the second bit in the Royal.
I must have got it, but I just can't remember.
The steroid wasn't that difficult and hard, just pain, a bit of
Just a jag in it. So.
The magnesium sulfate, and I had to have it more than once because I was I was in labour for 5 days. So, I was in the labour ward for 5 days, and they gave me magnesium sulfate, and I felt, and it's I think a very common symptom. Your skin goes very warm. I felt like someone had set fire to my skin.
I felt hot.
Mm-hmm.
I felt hot.
And I just remember looking at Paul when they gave it to me and just being like, I'm burning. Like, I feel like I'm burning from inside. He had a fan. And he's got a fan in my face.
And it's roasting in there anyway.
It's like 24 degrees.
God, it's roasting in there anyway.
At this point, it was April. Sorry, April at this point. So yeah, 5 days. They managed to slow things down. And I had all like the drugs at that point. So they gave me morphine to try and slow things down, to try and make...
Is the steroid injection to delay it?
No, the steroid is to basically give them steroids to develop their lungs, because their lungs are not...
Yeah, no, I definitely did get that then.
Yeah.
Yeah, carry on, sorry.
So magnesium sulfate steroids are for baby.
Yeah.
And then the morphine was more to slow things down for me.
Right.
So they pumped me full of morphine, dihydrocodeine. I had every single, I'd say, drug other than like gasoline and like epidurals, if you know what I mean, because I didn't get to that stage. They were just, their goal was, let's slow this down. Yeah. They also at that point gave me muscle relaxants and all that kind of stuff.
And were you in pain?
I just, no. If I compare to actual labour, no. But at that point, it was sore.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like agonising.
Right.
I was just uncomfortable. And I was definitely getting contractions. And they could see them. They were showing on the CTG at that point. And their thing was, we're monitoring you, and when you get to 5 and 10, so 5 contractions in 10 minutes, then we need to start getting worried.
Right.
And it would almost get to that point and then slow down, get to that point and slow down. So over a period of 5 days, also having had no sleep.
Yeah, 5 days. God, you're exhausted.
So yeah, 5 days, and they did various different things. And the strangest thing is it would slow down and then kick up again.
Yeah.
So I'd maybe slow down, get a couple of hours sleep, and then kick off again, and then slow it down. And then eventually it got to like, I think it was day 4. And I was exhausted.
Yeah.
I was just like on my knees. And I said, it was a fetal medicine unit. They came and saw me, and they were like, right, we're going to try and give you an amniotic fluid reduction.
Right.
To try and slow things down and then reduce the fluid, because we think what's happening is your body is reaching a point. So I was 28 weeks, but my bump was measuring 33 weeks.
Oh, right, okay.
So they were like, your body, we think, is thinking, I'm big enough now, I'm ready, it's game time. But it's not, it's getting confused. So let's try and reduce some of that. And I was not prepared for that.
Right.
That was horrendous. That for me was worse than childbirth.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So they took me down again, they wheeled me down, and Paul said I was like a shell of myself at this point, because after that amount of days in labour and you're having such little sleep, he was like, you're just on your knees. And also fear.
Yeah.
Like fear of, oh my gosh.
This is terrifying.
Yeah. And then they wheeled me down, which it was the only way they could do it apparently, but it wasn't ideal, took me into like the normal scan area where people are there getting their 12 weeks or 20 weeks or whatever. And I just remember like hunched over on this wheelchair.
Yeah, just hiding your face.
Mm-hmm. I didn't want anyone to see me. I just remember thinking, oh, get me out of here as quickly as possible. And then they put me on the bed, and they forewarned me. They were like, this could work, it might not. They were like, but it's going to be sore. Right. They were like, we can give you a local anaesthetic, but that just numbs the surface of your skin. It doesn't stop the pain.
Actual pain.
And there's a very high chance that it could either reduce the chance of you going into labour
or kickstart it.
And I was like, right, okay. And they're like, it's going to take at least 45 minutes.
My God.
Now, it's the same process really as an amniocentesis, but an amniocentesis is done within 5 minutes. It's not very long.
5 minutes.
And I was like, right, okay. And they were like, and the hardest part, Meghan, is you're going to be in a lot of pain and we can't move.
For 45 minutes.
So I listened to not a podcast actually. I listened to a playlist at one of my yoga teachers. So it's only like towards the end I would go to pregnancy yoga, but that was horrific, and they had to do it twice. Twice, because the first time
another 45 minutes.
So I was all in all about probably an hour and a half to an hour and 50 minutes. And I just remember clenching. Paul said, he's like, I've never seen you like this. I had my noise cancelling headphones. He's like, you just, like, you'd open your eyes occasionally just to check everything was okay and then close them again. And then I'd look at him and he'd be like, you okay? And I couldn't speak because I was in that much pain. And like, oh, sorry. Clenching. I've never dug my nails into something so much in my life. And then being like, you're doing great, Megan, you're doing great. And just being like, I can't. And then there was one point that they had to pull out because Blake was moving and they were so terrified they were
he was going to, yeah.
And it would kill him if that happened. It'd be a stillbirth scenario. But the only way I can explain it is I felt like I could feel every movement, every needle movement in that stuff in my tummy I could feel. And it just felt like you're amplified, you're contracting on a bed and you can't do anything.
And you're not allowed to move.
But they managed, again, somehow, with like all the drugs they gave me, I was pumped up with drugs, and they managed to slow things down and then get transferred out the labour ward and then into the postnatal ward. And I was there for 11 days.
Were you in a room yourself?
Yeah. My only ask, and it was like my request to them, do not put me in a ward.
Yeah,
because I knew at that point my baby's not coming home with me.
Yeah.
And that was probably one of the harder points, was getting out of the labour rooms and the ward and then into the postnatal ward. We walked in and there was a couple with their baby and taking it home and doing the usual and the most beautiful thing that you should be doing.
Yeah.
They had their baby in their car seat and they were doing like the dad walking.
Photos, yeah.
And I just broke.
Yeah, no wonder.
Like we both did actually. We both cried in the room. And thankfully you had a curtain and you could just like, and I just was like, shut the curtain. And that was me for 11 days. And I went again.
11 days.
And I was in and out of the labour ward across that 11 days. And they said I had to have a period of 3 days of not going into the labour ward before they could think about discharging me.
And that didn't happen?
I know I did. I got home.
Oh,
so I got home for 10 days.
Right.
So they eventually discharged me. They gave me a day release, which is hilarious because I said to Paul, I feel like I'm escaping the prison.
I know.
And in between that, my mum and dad had brought Nelly to see me.
Oh.
It's just to boost my morale. Got home. I did tell you this was really complicated. I'm sorry. But yeah, got home for 10 days and then went back in after 10 days at home.
So you were labouring for how long then?
Officially 5 days in the labour ward. I've lost count how many times I bounced in and out of the labour ward in between those.
From that day that you were in the labour ward to going home to going back in, how long was that period?
In labour?
Yeah.
I reckon like 6 or 7 days. 7 days maybe.
God.
I know, so when you say I've got high pain thresholds.
Yeah. So 10 days later or 11 days later you go back in. What, like how?
I was walking Nelly. They told me, they were like,
it's going to happen soon.
Yeah, there's a chance you're going to go early. You might not. They were like, we might get you to like.
So you were 28 weeks and then he came at
31 plus 3.
So this was over a 3-week span.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Walked to Nelly in the morning. So the biggest risk for me and Blake was that my waters would break. And they'd said to me, they're like, your waters will not break like most people's. They will be literally like in a movie.
Oh, it will be a gush.
Mm-hmm. Because you've got to stop checking it's fluid.
And the scare is that he could come out with that.
So they're like, the risk is you could have something called a cord prolapse,
right?
Which various different people, so my midwife, like community midwife had warned me of, same with the fetal medicine unit. And the scenario would be that essentially because Blake is surrounded by so much fluid, he would move and then my waters would go and the cord would come first. And then basically he would press against the cord and then essentially suffocate himself because you get no blood supply. So result in a stillbirth. So they prepared me of that scenario and they were like, if your waters go, you need to phone an ambulance or you need to get in that car. But they had said to me, they were like, when you get in that ambulance or if you're going in the car, you do this position.
Right.
And Paul and I had done like little
just run drills, go.
Well, it's literally like, okay, this happens, is what we do. And it's the most unattractive thing. It's like downward dog, right? So the whole concept is like you want to be up, but your bum up, right? So you want to have your bum up in the air. So you're keeping baby as far up to your rib cage, right? So you basically go on like all fours and hang yourself upside down. And they were like, if you get a paramedic, they might not know this. So you need to do this when you see them and tell them, when I'm in the ambulance, I need to be like this. And they're like, but you might be quicker just getting in your car. Because they also warned me, they're like, if this happens to you at home, they will not take you to the Royal, they'll take you to St John's.
Yeah.
Because it's your closest hospital. And I knew at that point, it's not the right hospital for Blake.
Yeah.
I was like, if he comes early, and I knew because we'd had this surgical list, they told us about his surgeries, preparing us for it. I was like, that's where he needs to be.
Yeah.
So Paul and I had done like lots of runs to say, if that happens, like, get in the car, I'll get in the back seat.
I've just got visions of you, like, even in the middle of the night, alarm going off, right, go, go, go.
Yeah, literally. Like, honestly, and I think Paul was the biggest fear of that happening. Anyway, I was walking Nelly this Thursday. I was going in for a scan. So the proviso was that they would let me out of the hospital if I agreed to go in for a weekly scan.
Right.
So every Thursday I would go up, and it was just to check my fluid levels, because they were like, we might need to do a reduction, because their view was the thing that really slowed down labour was potentially that amniotic fluid reduction.
Oh God, and you're thinking, I don't want to go back.
I said to Paul, if they say to me, we're going to need to do it again, I was like, they've got to have like real evidence that that's going to really make a difference, because if it doesn't, I can't go through that again. So anyway, basically went in for this, and I'd gone to walk Nelly that morning with my mum, and I hadn't worn any knickers. So, classy bird that I am. At that point in pregnancy, I was just so big. I was like,
nothing's comfortable. So
no, my knickers were also getting really tight, and I was like, no, I'm just wearing my leggings. So, and I just remember feeling a bit damp down below, and thinking, and I never said a single thing, not to my mum, not to Paul, nothing. And do not ask me, when we were getting the scan, they were like, baby looks good, like little one looks quite happy. He was engaged at that point,
right?
But he had been pretty much
the whole time,
28 weeks. But I was like, today I just felt a little bit damp, and I just want to check that that's normal. And she's like, how damp? And I was like, well, just damp. I couldn't really describe it. I was like, I've not had a flush of water.
It's not been a gosh.
No. She was like, well, now you've said it, I have to check. So she did the swab. And Paul was, honestly, he was really unhappy with me.
Was he raging?
He was like, you should have told me this. Like, and I was like, I just didn't want to cause a fuss. That's like, Paul's like, that's your motto, but it shouldn't be. Like, put you first, put baby first. And then she came back, and he said, I'm sure it is.
Right.
And then at that point, they basically said, it's your waters, and you are going to have to stay in.
There you go. And then your actual labour from then?
72 hours later.
And you said that was fairly okay?
Oh, my labour was brilliant. So they admitted me in at that point, and I was adamant about not wanting to stay in. I was like, I've got a wedding. I've got my really good friend's wedding. I've gone and got my outfit and everything. So I was like adamant I don't want to go, and I'd actually nearly discharged myself. And
You're
then
crazy.
My obstetrician from the fetal medicine unit, who is a phenomenal rock star, she will be she's my absolute role model in so many aspects, and forever will be so grateful to her. She came back in and she went, where are you going? You're not going anywhere, get back in that bed. And she was like, within 72 hours people tend to go into labour, and she was right. 72 hours I went into labour, and the difference this time was, I remember being buckled in pain.
It was really, really painful.
And they said, if you're this sore, we can only give you a certain amount of painkillers. We're going to have to send you to labour ward. And previously I'd have been like, no, I don't want to go back. Whereas this time round, I was like, you've got to. And that was it.
So did you get an epidural or anything like that?
So when they took me in, they didn't even want to examine me.
Really?
And I had to say to Paul, like, within an hour and a half, I was like, Paul, this is different. Like, I am so much, I am really sore. And I honestly, I was on no painkillers at that point. And other than, I think I'd had dihydrocodeine.
Right.
And then they came in, and I was like, you need to examine me. I'm begging you at this stage to examine me. And then they did. And the doctor basically came and sat down, and again, on the lap beside you, and touched you, and I was like, oh God. And she's like, I don't know if you want to hear this. And I just remember sitting thinking, if you tell me I'm not dilated, I'm going to punch you. Because I was so over it at that point.
I better be.
And at that point, she was like, "You're 8 centimetres. It's go time."
there you go. Let's go.
And then at that point, I just remember saying, and my rock throughout was my obstetrician. So in the stint that I'd been in hospital the first time round, and then being in the prenatal ward, she was just my rock. And I remember saying, "Is Shona in?"
Yeah.
And she just was like, "She's on call." And I was like, "Tell Shona." And she delivered Blake.
There you go.
And I remember her saying to me, I was like, "Do I get do I get to take any pain relief?
Yeah.
Can I get an epidural?"
And late at that point.
I wasn't, weirdly enough.
Oh.
They were like, "We can give you an epidural." And then I was like,
But
okay.
I was told that it might not work because of the, like, if you're at 8 centimetres. Might not work.
They never said anything like that. They said, "You can have it if you want it."
Yeah.
And I just
Suppose
looked.
they can't deny it.
Yeah, but I just looked at my obstetrician and I said, "Do you think I need it?" And she went, "I think we can start pushing."
Oh, there you go.
And I was like,
So
right.
did you feel the need to push?
She was like, "Right, let's go." And then she was like, "We can do this together." And I think if I
that's
hadn't
nice.
had
Yeah, that's really nice.
her with me, I don't know if I would have been able to be in such a kind of, right, let's do this. But I was very much in like, right, let's get this. I was like, game time, let's just do this.
What was Paul's face like? Was he like, "Oh my God, let's go"?
He turned around and did say at one point, he was like, "Do you want me I need to go phone people?" And I just went, no. I was like, "This is happening, Paul. And we just need to be in this moment. And we need all our energy
It's
and
me
focus.
and you. Let's go.
We're doing this, it's happening, and we'll tell them when he's here." And yeah, that was it. And then within an hour and a half, Blake was there.
There you go. Wow.
He was born 31 plus 3.
And weighing what?
£3.10.
Pretty good weight.
And when he was born, I didn't get to hold him.
No.
So they came in, which we again had been pre-warned about. So they'd showed us the NICU as part of the fetal medicine clinic, and they had warned me that they're going to come in with a resuscitator and he'll be taken away.
Right.
What they didn't warn me about was actually the resuscitator wasn't going to be in the room. It was going to be in another room.
Right.
But Paul and I had aligned, when that happened, you go for it with him
Yeah.
and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
So we didn't get to touch him, hold him, but I did hear him cry.
Yeah. So
I knew
you knew he was alive.
he's alive. To what extent?
Yeah.
No
God,
idea.
But the fact he just gets taken away, and you see that.
He got taken away and that was it. So yeah, Paul then went with him to deal with that. And then I, at that point, got taken to get my placenta removed.
Yeah.
Because that didn't come away. And yeah, basically from around roughly 6 hours from giving birth to coming out of theatre for that, we finally got to meet Blake. I mean, I got wheeled up to the NICU and I got to hold his finger. And that was when they confirmed their suspicion was actually correct.
It was no more allegedly. It was confirmed.
It's esophageal atresia. And he was born unable to swallow. And
so he had all these tubes on him, and
yeah,
he was ventilated.
He was ventilated and had something called a Rapogal tube as well. So obviously he couldn't swallow. So he still creates secretions, so like saliva.
So it's like a suction.
So he needed a suction, which had to be flushed every 15 minutes. God. And that we'll chat about has been part of our NICU journey.
Just seeing him that small with all of that on.
So weirdly, I never thought he looked that small when he was born. I remember thinking, you're really long. You had long legs, a bit like Paul being tall. I just remember thinking, you look better than I thought you were going to be.
Yeah.
But nothing quite prepared you for, like, just seeing them in that incubator.
Yeah, and not being able to...
Yeah, not to be able to hold them or anything.
Yeah.
But I do remember vividly, and one of the midwives and, the NICU nurses said to us afterwards, you were one of the most, like, composed and, like, with it parents in that moment.
Yeah.
Because you held his hand, you got emotional when you saw him, and then the first thing you asked us was, has he got any bacterial associations?
Yeah, you knew what was up.
and they just looked at me and they were like, no.
Oh, how did you feel in that moment? Desolation. Good. You needed that.
Yeah. Like, at that point, I felt like I could breathe.
Yeah. God, it was a long slog for you. So that was Meghan's birth story, pregnancy and birth story.
Yeah. So to go back to the start, my labour
was pretty good.
And that all comes down to who was with me at the time. Paul was my biggest,
Yeah.
he was my rock. Like I fell in love with Paul all over again.
Yeah.
In that experience. Learning to advocate for yourself, that's huge.
Yeah.
I really
And
learned
knowing
that.
yourself, knowing your body.
Knowing your body.
Yeah.
But my labour itself was fantastic, and I
Good.
would give birth again. I just don't think I could go through the rest of it.
Right now.
Right now.
That could change.
That could change. So really quickly, to wrap up,
Yep. Our
mum guilty pleasure.
mum guilty pleasure.
What's your guilty pleasure been this week?
Every night I've been having a bath before Felix has.
Love that.
He has a bath at 8 o'clock, so I jump in at 6.
And he gets your dirty bath water?
No. No.
Maybe.
But nah. I'll jump in maybe 6, half 6 for a quick bath, and so
Love
I'm
that.
nice and like ready for pajamas, chilled out, and I'll watch How to Sleep. So that's mine this
Love
week.
that.
What about you?
So mine has been. I'm gonna laugh at this one. Whenever I'm in the car on my own,
Uh-huh.
I have got really into Fred again.
Oh,
Right? I know you probably wouldn't think that's my kind of music choice. I don't know. But anyway, driving down the motorway when you've got nobody in the
just
car,
blasting it.
blasting Fred again. Particularly Adore You. Like that has been my thing this week. Like just blasting it.
Yeah,
Even when I was
blasting
driving
it.
to get you today, I was like raving in the car to myself.
Good.
So yeah, that's been my mum guilty pleasure.
Good.
But yeah, well, thank you.
I know. Thanks for sharing that. I know that you were a little bit apprehensive
Yeah, it's a lot.
because you're revisiting it, and it brings up all the emotions again, and that's what it is.
Yeah. I hope this helps somebody, even if it's not, or if someone's just
Yeah.
interested, because I think a lot of people don't know our journey, and I
Yeah.
think will be curious to know about it. So hopefully,
You're all nosy.
yeah, I think
I would be listening as well.
Yeah. So
Good. Well, come back next time to hear the rest of the story. Meghan's is a continued.
yeah, I promise it gets better.
Exactly. It always does. The only way's up.
Definitely. But thank you. It has been a pleasure as always, and thank you for listening.
Subscribe, like us on Instagram, and all that jazz.
Yeah, and we'll see you guys very soon.
Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.